Everyone, esteemed industry leaders, distinguished guests, respected faculty members, and my dear friends. On behalf of entire SPJIMR family, I, Zeba Saeed,
and I, Harsh Pun,
welcome you all to Samavesh 2018.
Samavesh is SPJIMR's annual Industry Academia Conclave. Organized by the students of Postgraduate Program of Management, the event is a platform for eminent thought leaders from industry and academia to discuss and debate contemporary issues in the fields of consulting, information management, finance, operations, and marketing. Before we begin, we request all of you to put your phones on silent mode. Please continue to promote the event on social media using the hashtags. Thank you.
SPJIMR Institute of Management and Research, an integral part of Bharati Vidya Bhavan, was established in 1981. The Institute's mission has been to influence practice and promote value-based growth. A constant focus on the development of not just skills and knowledge, but also attitude and spirituality is critical to the learner-centric pedagogy at SPJIMR. The curriculum instills competition-based efficiency and collaboration-based ethos in all participants.
PGPM is a one-year full-time residential MBA program aimed at accelerating careers of participants with over 5 years of experience. The USP of PGPM is enhancing the functional and managerial capabilities of participants with substantial corporate experience. It is a rigorous multi-stage admissions process to select candidates with skill, experience, and temperament to take up leadership roles. The program has state-of-the-art curriculum, instructors with rich experience in industry and academia, and a combination of classroom and experience-based learning. These features develop well-rounded professionals who are ready to take up leadership positions in multiple industries.
The 15th batch of PGPM has participants from diverse backgrounds, all of whom have a high degree of functional and domain expertise. This batch has 136 participants, with average age of 29 years and an average work experience of 7 years. We come from different industries and educational backgrounds. This inherent diversity brings rich opportunities for peer learning that are critical to work in cross-functional teams. This year, Samavesh has 5 conclaves: consulting, information management, finance, operations, and marketing. We have concluded the conclaves for consulting, information management, and finance practices yesterday, and the marketing conclave is scheduled for today afternoon. The topic for today's operation conclave is transforming the supply chain in Industry 4.0. Supply chains are indispensable to global businesses. The evolution of traditional supply chains towards smart, connected, and highly efficient supply chain ecosystem is the need of the hour. Industry 4.0 ushers in an era that drives the mission to bring down the siloed walls of marketing, product development, manufacturing, and distribution.
The digital supply network offers a new degree of resiliency and responsiveness that companies can use to provide most efficient and transparent service delivery to customers. The digital supply chain, as we envision it, consists of 8 key elements: integrated planning and execution, logistics visibility, procurement 4.0, prescriptive supply chain analytics, and digital supply chain enablers. Today, we make an effort to progress beyond gathering technologies and focus shift to evolve towards a complete digital ecosystem.
We now request Professor Sajeev George, Area Head of Operations and Supply Chain Department, to set the context for Operations Conclave. Sir.
Good morning, everyone. So let me extend a warm welcome to each and everyone once again to this Operations and Supply Chain Conclave of Samavesh. I'm very happy that Samavesh has reached this stage from a very, very humble beginning. Samavesh, I think, has become a brand in itself. I think the PGPM students need really a congratulation for making Samavesh a big success. So this is a forum for maybe academia to interact with industry. Of course, we have a number of other forums too, but one of the most effective way to maybe academia to meet industry and to have a dialogue between them. This has really helped us a lot in the past. And we have been fortunate that we have been getting experts from industry to deliberate on topics which are contemporary in nature. So when we were discussing about the topic for this Samavesh, of course we have to be in line with what the PGPM Samavesh itself is mainly focusing on. So on focusing on going digital. So operations and supply chain, the theme for this year, we decided that to be how to transform the supply chain for Industry 4.0. Of course, this seems a kind of, say, maybe a little vague thing to say, what is Industry 4.0 itself? Because different people have different views about what is this Industry 4.0. I think it's not explicitly defined. But still, I think most people consider that as maybe the changing, say, landscape of industry, especially manufacturing and production. And we want to extend that to supply chain, because I think our focus in this program for the supply chain operations specialization is an integrated view of supply chain. We look at supply chain as all the stages that add value to the customer. So right from maybe the sourcing and procurement to even customer service, all the stages of value addition we consider as processes that can potentially add value to the customer. So all these stages together, how does it add value for customer? So that is what supply chain is all about. There we talk about efficiency, we talk about responsiveness, agility and flexibility and all this stuff. And of course, nowadays supply chains are becoming more and more complex, as all of us know, because the product life cycles are becoming shorter and shorter. The demand, say, variations are also much more drastic these days. So the pressure on supply chain becomes much more than before, and that makes things much more complex. So how to achieve balance between maybe efficiency and maybe service? That's a big question. So when there are also a lot of technologies that are maybe disrupting the supply chain, maybe the earlier say innovations or earlier industrial revolutions would have been more focusing on technical innovation. This Industry 4.0 tend to be maybe more focusing on human-machine interaction, because it's powered by internet. So where all different technologies, how does it affect the supply chain, how does it affect the customers, how do we create an ecosystem which takes into account all these technologies, the potential of all these technologies, because many companies use these technologies, but they might not be able to completely leverage the potential and so on. So these are the things that we would like to discuss in this conclave. I'm very happy that we have say very expert panel to say deliberate on this. I'm sure that we will be able to derive a lot of academic and practical insights in today's deliberation. I wish everyone all the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your wisdom with all of us gathered here. Let me take this opportunity to introduce our first keynote speaker for the day. Mr. Venkatesh Kumar, President and CEO, Stellium Inc., is an internationally recognized leader in delivering supply chain transformation, strategy, planning, and operational turnaround. He is a frequent speaker in the area of operations, supply chain, and logistics with over 19 years of experience in industry and consulting. Sir, we now invite you to the stage to share your knowledge on the topic for today's Operation Conclave, Transforming the Supply Chain in Industry 4.0. Welcome, sir.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's a great pleasure and privilege to be here. I'm absolutely delighted. So when we talk about Industry 4.0, many people have different understanding. In my view, I can define that, I like to define that as autonomous mass personalization. That's how I like to call it, very simple definition. And it's a journey, it's not a destination, it's not a philosophy, it's not a framework, it's a journey, I would say. It can be, the principles can be applied across the supply chain and across the value chain, as Professor also pointed out. So what I'd like to do is, I'd like to start with, I'll focus more, there is a lot of content out there on the manufacturing side and how manufacturing can be transformed. I would like to focus a little bit more on the planning, logistics, and the other aspects, and how these principles can be applied. So that's where I'm going to spend some time. So first, what's the need? I mean, why do we need it? So let's look at the some data points which I follow something called Connecting to Compete. It's a World Bank report that comes every year. I'm sure you'd be reading about it. What you find in that there is a great correlation between the GDP of the countries and the logistics performance. India is probably one of the two which doesn't fit the curve. So if you look at our GDP rank, it's much higher, but our logistics performance rank as per that is 35. Logistics performance is not just, I mean, in my view, logistics performance is not just about corporate profit or corporations' benefits. It's also about, as a country, if you look at as a nation, it's about building the nation, it's about the poverty reduction. And if you take another measure, another factor, which is about the per capita income, there is a direct correlation between per capita income and the LPI rank. So it's much more than just looking at the profits. So if you look at our rough about cost in the logistics, about 14.5%. Global average for similar kind of countries are about 10%. So we are leaving about 5% on the table, which is on a 2.4 trillion GDP currently is $120 billion per year, which is a lot of money on the table that we are talking about. If we take our base to 5 billion, which we are looking at in the next few years, we are tripling the amount. So we need to be efficient. We need to be investing a lot more in this area to get this, even if half we can get. Now some of the other challenges if you look at in India in supply chain, just few simple numbers to understand the complexity and challenges. So we have about 35% deadhead travel, which is empty miles, because very fragmented transportation, visibility is very low, so therefore very, very high dead travel, empty miles that we are doing. Global standard is about 700 kilometers a day that asset do. We are doing just about 275 kilometers, very, very less, because we have one driver, two driver concept, which will just do a drive in the mornings and evenings. A lot of restrictions at many places. Our infrastructure is not good. Our truck design, therefore, and how we manage, maintain our assets, much lower asset life, so therefore the ROI is much lower for these assets. Intralogistics productivity and accuracy, any small place is a godown, any small place is a warehouse, there is no proper definition, very, very low productivity. Last mile is the biggest challenge. Last mile we are looking at a very, very high cost compared to the long haul. It's 3 to 6x, but it's for an organized industry. For unorganized, it's about 10x or even more. When I say last mile, it's reaching either to the consumer or to the retail from the last. It could be a distribution center or could be a distributor's place. And that's where there is a very, very high cost. Almost 50% of the transportation cost goes in this, and there is a tremendous opportunity to solve this problem. It's a very difficult problem to solve, but it's a great opportunity to solve this problem. So what are the factors that are impacting the supply chain, or what are the things that we need to look at or take care of? So I've divided that in two parts. One is the demand side, other is the structural and infra and policy challenges. So on the demand side, we all know these factors. So customer service expectation, everybody wants Amazon and Flipkart experience. Everybody wants things on time. Traditional supply chain definition, we heard about right product, right time, at the right place. It's no more that. It's right product, but any variation of the product. It's right time, but at any time, and right place, but at any place, at office, at home, and I can pick up anywhere, drop anywhere. So it has made the supply chain very, very complex. Shift towards servitization. I think this is a very ignored point, and I believe that this is the one which is going to change the game dramatically, and it's already happening quite a bit. In Europe and US, it's been a very prevalent thing. If you look at in India also, a lot of even the water purifier companies, I recently came across they are not selling, they are no more selling the purifier, they are selling the purified water, right? If you look at Leland have recently done some arrangements with Delhi Transport and even Bangalore Transport Corporation, where they are selling the vehicle for number of hours. It's the number of hours that it will run. They'll take care of every maintenance, everything. Europe, it's been the leasing concept has been there for many more years, but this is coming very, very big in India. It's going to be, it's changing the game. Even in US, for example, in our office, our printers or any asset we don't own, it's all leased, and it's the number of paper that we print is what we pay for. Same going to be here. So, and to be able to do this, you need the technology. You need to be able to track what's happening with the machine, and that's where the Industry 4.0 and all that will come. We'll talk about that a little later. Omni-channel, we know that. I don't need to go into that. Decreasing product life. I think Professor just talked about this. It's a huge factor. We underestimate the complexity that it brings in supply chain. When 5 years ago I worked at ITC, 6 years ago the product used to be 1 year, 2 year, a biscuit would get launched, 2 year will be the minimum life, there will be certain variations that will come, but the product line will not change, the manufacturing process largely will remain same, some packing variations, 100 gram become 92, 92 became 80, things like that would happen. Now if you look at the product refresh rate, every month new products are coming, Britannia is bringing a new product, ITC will have to bring new product, competition. So when the product changes so dramatically, the supply chain becomes very difficult, especially with a product with having limited shelf life. It's a very, very difficult thing. Everybody wants the newer product. So managing that becomes a very, very difficult and challenging task. And humanly impossible in a way, I would say. If you look at the structural challenges, so this is the demand side, this is what we need to do, this is what the customer wants, this is what organizations need to do, but there are a lot of constraints and challenges. I've highlighted very few of them. India has many unique constraints and challenges, but if you look at here, retail stores fragmentation, we have about 13 million retail stores in India, large and small. Delivering to 13 million and reaching to 13 million retail stores is a very, very difficult task. The best of the distribution, with the best distribution infrastructure also can reach to just about 2.5 to 3 million retail stores directly, and then rest of them in indirect. When you have indirect, the service quality, the service frequency, all that matters quite a bit. It goes down dramatically. In transportation, when you look at imbalanced trade routes, India has just only one properly balanced trade route, which means that both sides the loads are equal, which is Delhi and Mumbai. The other second one slightly balanced is Hyderabad and Mumbai. Everything else is highly imbalanced, which means that one side you have the load, other side there is nothing moving. What it means to transporters, so think of transporters, one of the largest transporters in country, Delhi Assam Roadways. I'm taking this name because they started with operating just there between Guwahati and Delhi, right? So their base is Guwahati and their base is Delhi. So they have the visibility only till that, but there is a load from Assam to Delhi, whereas there is very limited load on the reverse side. So what do you do? I mean, it becomes a huge, huge challenge. So unless you have visibility, unless you are able to rotate, unless you are able to build a transportation loop, it becomes very difficult. It's almost impossible to get the cost efficiency, and that's why you see the metric that I talked about, the 35% deadhead. It's one of the factors that is driving that. How do you solve this? Through much better visibility of the assets, tracking, real-time tracking, ability to do optimization across the network and not just the individual assets and things like that. Some companies are trying to solve, like Rivigo and DHL e-commerce, they have started, which is point-to-point, but they only do at a very limited scale. They take only jobs which are balanced route, because between 2 points, one company can always find that. So. Service provider fragmentation, 85% of the service providers in logistics, which is both warehousing and transportation, are owning 5 or less vehicles, which means that's the definition that we have put. So 5 and less, which is extremely fragmented. So there are 3-4 layers of how the guy who orders, let's say I am the shipper, if I order a transportation, it goes through 3 or 4, 5 layers to reach the vehicle. So everybody is taking a cut, and therefore the cost goes high anyway. It doesn't matter because very high percentage, 80+ percentage of our transportation assets are funded by black money, unfortunately, but going forward it will become a challenge. Infrastructure and policy. I don't have to talk about the first one, very poor infrastructure we have still. We have tried to improve quite a bit with a lot of programs. But just to give you a stat, our golden quadrangle program, that it has improved from average speed from 23 km to 24 km per hour. That is all it has done. Our hope is only on the something like this Delhi DFC, the dedicated freight corridors that are coming. It's higher, wider, faster and longer. So the trains that are coming, it's going to be reaching from Delhi, Mumbai in 24 hours. So it's all four. So combined, it is a higher, double-decker, wider because dedicated route. Longer trains, almost 2.5 times the length, and faster. So it's this dedicated. So therefore, it can do 100 miles, which is average about 28 miles per hour is the goods train speed in the country, which can do 100 miles. What it will do is, in this route, Delhi-Bombay route, it is going to reduce the cost of transportation per ton kilometer to 1/5. That's the impact. That's the dramatic impact that can have. Similarly, the Eastern Corridor is coming up. So some of these large ones will have. But the biggest challenge I see is not those. Biggest challenge I see, and there's no integrated logistics program in India. It's been it's been tried for 2004 onwards. I worked in Planning Commission for 1 year, so I have some idea what happens and how this particular program was, integrated logistics program was taken up, and then what kind of challenges and personal biases that come in the whole thing. Our biggest challenge in this is two-part. One is the port connectivity. We have great ports. India has a very long coastline. It can be tremendously used to move so many things. Even domestic transportation, if you move through ocean routes, can be very, very cheap for quite a few things. But we do not have the connectivity from the port to our railway structure or our road infrastructure, and that is the biggest reason of not being used, which is the lowest cost transportation mode. Last mile, we know that the traffic in India, delivering to the last mile, small places, how difficult it is. Typically, and it's very fragmented. So think like a retail store. If you go to any time a retail store, just do observe for some time. You will have 3 sales guys and 3 or 4 delivery guys at any point in time. There will be a levers guy, there will be a Britannia guy, there will be an ITC guy taking orders, and there will be similarly 3 or 4 guys delivering. And 2 or 3 people in an average 2,500 square feet retail stores will always be doing this. They just sort of doing orders or counting the delivery. And these are piece delivery. It becomes very challenging and very complex. It's used, very, very expensive also. So similarly, I give example of e-commerce delivery, and especially Big Basket. I can talk about. They were our clients. So if they go to it, they go at your store, and if they spend if in less than 500 rupees of value, if they spend more than 5 minutes at your door, they lose the margin, right? And traditionally in our houses, parents and whoever is taking will count everything once again, match. So 5 minutes eventually they take. So if you have 500 rupees bill, they lose the margin. So it's very expensive and very complex. There are people who are trying to solve it, and it requires much more tech. I believe that everything can be solved through the today's tech and the coming tech. Tech is moving at a very fast pace, and it can be done. Fiscal optimization network, it has been done. GST has been, I think, one of the 20 years late, but still done. It's a great program, but people have not leveraged it. There are still many gaps and challenges. It was designed very simple when it was designed, but it has not really come to that stage, and companies will take time. Everybody is struggling with the compliance part of it and not really looking at the supply chain optimization yet. So there is a great opportunity there. Logistics policy, we already talked about. So how do we solve these? We have these factors where customer is requesting on one side. This is where the industry is going. We need to compete against global players who are coming with tremendous tech. how do you compete? So balance the demand side and these constraints that are very unique to Indian setup. I think that is where I believe that the role of technology and Industry 4.0, and when I talk Industry 4.0, it's not just the manufacturing technology or the cyber physical systems. I'm also talking about automation. India has a lot more miles to cover on automation, which are a lot of old technologies which are, for example, EDI, electronic data interchange, how two companies interacts with each other and do business. I mean, if you go to any of these companies, I mean, India has not adopted EDI well, and very less adoption of EDI, in fact. So if you go to any of these companies, there'll be 20, 30 people in a consumer products company sitting and taking orders from each of the modern trade and punching in the system. So if you look at two systems business, you have two different product codes. You have two different pack sizes, retail pack sizes are different, CPG pack sizes are different, location codes could be different. If you don't have an automated way of doing, you will make so many errors all the time, and that still happens. We have not adopted that technology for whatever, because it's the value chain. Everybody wants to invest in their boundary and not to go beyond that. So yeah, so looking at all the constraint, how do you solve this and do it optimal tech? And that is where I see the role of Industry 4.0 coming in. So how do you look at it? I mean, how do we solve it? And as I said, it's a journey that that we need to go through, and it's not just a destination or a point. It's a journey. So how do you think? I mean, how do you start thinking about this? If you look at the entire demand side factors. So first is the customer centricity. Facebook, Google, Flipkart, Amazon, they're already doing that. They're personalizing everything to the individual. It's a plan and deliver at the segment of one. And that's everybody has to look at in the similar fashion. If you're competing against the Walmart supply chain, see at the end we have to look at the source and the consumer and the entire value chain and the cost. And everybody has to compete against that. If Walmart is coming here and taking from farmer and directly processing and delivering to consumer, everybody else has to compete against that cost. That's the kind of number you are looking at. They will look at all such things, and you have to also therefore follow. And if you're not, for example, if the retail stores, the way mom and pop stores, that way we have in country, if they continue to be in a similar way, in 5 years' time, only guys who will remain who owns their own stores and do their own labor. Nobody else. Anybody who rents the place or have deployed labor from outside won't survive, because it's so inefficient. Even today, the prices are 20%, 10% higher on different products. So second is the connected product. We talked about the servitization. We talked about the product life cycle. Designing and managing at a very fast pace. So designing and managing as a product of one is another key factor. How fast you can do. And it's not about just the product, it's about managing the life cycle till the end. I mean, we worked with one of the two-wheelers and we found, and it's a tremendous insight, one of the largest two-wheelers company in India. And what we found is they were passing all quality tests in the internal system, CO tests and dynamometer tests, all of that. It's all green, good, it goes to market, and there are a lot of failures. So when we compare those failures with these exact parameters, not just the green and red, but the exact parameter, there is a great correlation, which means that if you start doing and looking at those additional data and the performance of the market post sales, there can be tremendous insight which can help you improve the product. And there are a lot of tech available today which can do that. So if you collect the data from, say, I'm taking example of automotive because it's simpler to understand. If you collect the data from ECUs, OBUs and all of that, and make use of the data for engineering purpose, all the failures that you analyze, even before it has failed, you would be able to figure out a lot of things from that data. So that you can do. The same data can be used if there is a breakdown, that can be routed to the different distributors or the dealers who can solve the problem. Of course, the data can be used for tracking, tracing. So there is a tremendous power in just capturing the OBU, ECU, all the simple data from using the existing tags. So managing the life cycle of the product is going to be very critical, even post-delivery. Mass customization, we already know that. Manufacturing in lot size of one. That's where the Industry 4.0 started. Besides a lot of these Western world companies wanted to bring the manufacturing back. So that's where it started, and we all know the use cases. I'm not going into the manufacturing piece of it. I'll go the last piece, which is the real-time insights and prediction. Manage the supply chain of one. So supply chain, if you know, those who come from operations have managed, supply chain has million failure points. Any case, anywhere breaks and supply chain is broken. So manufacturing supply chain has million failure points. It cannot be managed unless you have tremendous tech, exception-driven systems, auto-healing systems, auto-response systems. Only that way you can manage. Supply chain is 24/7. Supply chain is a flow. It cannot be looked at as a period, month, which is what we look at in industry today, which is very unfortunate, but it's a flow. I mean, production is not stopping, delivery is not stopping, and therefore you have to have tremendous tech. I think this can give, this is the basic starting point that in India that I see, which can be easily achieved and done based on your truck position, where it is. You can reroute some of the deliveries. If few things are not available at one place, dynamically you can take at other places. The simple basic stuff that you can do is out of these four, I feel that the customer centricity, I think that's going to be the biggest drivers, or sort of the biggest area of impact, because that's going to be directly targeted towards how you target towards consumer. I mean, it's things like, so today we talk about forecasting, we talk about forecasting for a distributor, forecasting at a branch, forecasting at country level. It is about micro forecasting. Micro forecasting, when I say, it's not a monthly, but not even a weekly, but daily, hourly. Facebook, I'm not sure how many of you have heard about Prophet. Prophet is a Facebook forecasting engine which they have published. It's built in R and you can use it at your lab also. It predicts what kind of people, what type of people, what demography and all that. There are about 72 odd parameters would be online at this time, and based on that they put the ads and various things. So it's about targeting at a very micro level, micro forecasting, micro promotions. That's going to be another big thing. I mean, many times you've already seen that. We were doing some legal stuff recently, and suddenly started getting emails from I can solve you IRS problem and tax problem and things like that. So there is a big connection in that, and people can do a very micro sort of forecasting, micro promotion, micro merchandising. What sells in this store doesn't sell in this store. What sells on Mondays doesn't sell on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. For example, potato chips. What sells on Mondays and Tuesdays is smaller packs, but if you look at and Wednesday also, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, these will be large packs. So when the guy who is replenishing, he has to replenish the larger packs at the top on the shelf on these days and smaller packs on the other days. So these are very fine. Similarly, you can look at the trend belt. For example, what sells in an upscale market in Kurmangala in Bangalore and is something similar. You can look at the trend belt and compare that with Banjara Hills in Hyderabad and similar upscale area here. So it's connecting those shopper insights and be able to position the product to the right customer is going to be very critical, because stores are just one click away. You just click and you go to Amazon, the other store is Flipkart, and that's it. So it's one click away. So you have to be really precise and on top of the game. Now, how do we start? I mean, we'll cover during the panel discussion also a lot of things. I'm not going to get into a lot of details. So what I have found in my consulting work over the last 6 years or so is many people have done two ways, which I believe is not the right way. One is they have gone and said, okay, they will do IoT, and they have gone to plants and said, okay, I'll capture all the data from all machines and start capturing. Just in a month, they would figure out that they don't know what to do with this data. Then there is a machine sends data every second, every 30 seconds. There is a tremendous amount of data that has come. So what to do with the data? Not many people have thought from that perspective. So just collecting the data, seeing that things are moving on a chart or something, but there's no insight or benefit that they are generating. The other approach I have seen is a big bang. So they'll have consulting companies or themselves a large program, a chief digital officer will come and look at a whole transformation end to end and try and take that. But then when he puts the money on the table, that is what is going to cost, it will not go anywhere. So I've seen that, but bigger companies have taken that, and I've seen partly working and not working. What I have found always working is if some companies have tried to solve a part of the process or a particular area driven by a particular metric. So for example, one company wanted to solve a traceability problem. Some said, I will improve OE, and therefore to be able to improve OE, what are the IoT stuff or Industry 4.0 stuff I need to do? Automotive, as a company I talked about, they just wanted to solve quality problems. So just said, focus on quality, get this done. There is a tremendous business case in that. Very recently we did a foods company which was just yield problem. The first day I went to the plant and I saw 2% yield. If you can save, there is an entire business case for investment. So I think looking at the point problem in the bigger journey, to get confidence, to get the basic tech in, basic people and organization in, because huge change in the mindset and organization. So some of the benefits that you can, the program that you can look at, which we have done as a company, and that's what we see. So in the manufacturing side, so looking at the quality improvement, effectiveness or OE improvement, flexibility of the manufacturing means doing a lot shorter batch size than what they were doing. So these kind of problems they have solved through IoT. Logistics, connected products and appliances, again, the similar thing. This I'm going to skip. I'll anyway talk about it. I just taken few use cases from planning and transportation. Manufacturing is out there quite a bit, so I have not sort of picked up from there. But it's mostly obvious, but I'll just take one or two examples. For example, the machine learning in planning. Let me pick that and talk about it. So if you look at manufacturing plant, let me start with the manufacturing plant. Manufacturing plant, if something breaks down, there are multiple lines, something breaks down, what happens? So there is some guy supervisor who will say, okay, what do we do? There are some urgent order, there has to be, let's say it happened in the middle of the night. How do you reroute all of that? So one of the clients we recently worked with, what it did is it went to the plant maintenance system, which had the history of if a similar type of breakdown happened, this is the time the machine is off, typically 8 hours or 10 hours of the downtime. Then it went to the planning system, the data was fed to the planning system, the scheduling system rescheduled automatically in the night, taking that line off for 10 hours and then sent it back to the plant floor and everybody started working. So it's just with the current day's computing power, it's a minute and a half of shutdown is what they experience in such cases. And then the products, high priority products, wherever possible will get rerouted and the orders to the different lines. Other example in the forecasting, if you have things like retail or you have a automotive spare parts scenario, you are dealing with 100,000 products, 200,000 products across several locations. Managing for a forecast planner or manager, managing so many models, keeping the parameters optimal at all points of time is simply not humanly possible, because supply chain is optimal only when you're designed at that day. The moment you moved, it's suboptimal. There is a product profile, order profile, everything has changed, and as you move away in the time, it's likely to be far more suboptimal. So without a machine learning capability, getting that optimally back to where it should be is very hard. Typically, I'll give you an example of myself at ITC when I worked many years ago. We had some costs set up in our planning system APO for a warehouse in Agartala, which was very low. So when the entire warehouses, all country was filled, a whole bunch of candies were moved to Agartala. And some 60 odd trucks going to Agartala of candies. So that's what system designed and did based on that. So what had happened, for the last 3 years, nobody had touched those cost parameters. If you touch those cost parameters and put the real cost, then only optimizer is going to work. So these kind of, so machine learning plays a great role. We have tried this with forecasting and supply planning parameters. I think all the parameters you can look at, do machine learn and automate that. Blockchain also has many utilities, many great use cases in planning, especially in the entire, if you look at the entire value chain, not just within the company, but in the value chain between the distributors, company, retail players. If you look at the entire ecosystem, a blockchain kind of system can be tremendous for planning. It's already being used in many cases. For example, warranty, which is a smart warranty. So warranty, we have 20 billion odd devices, I guess is going to be 50 billion as per the reports. Now each of them have some or other kind of warranty. How do you ensure that the warranty is encoded in the system and it throws that out to the system, something happens? For example, if the phone says that if you drop more than 5-meter height, then it should not, it's not covered under warranty, but it can be done that. Yeah, so yeah, that's all I wanted to talk. These are very specific stuff, so I'll cover that later in the discussion. Thank you so much.